Hey guys, this is Thomas from Nurse Money Talk, and in this video, what I want to do is talk about what does it mean exactly if you get a lot of select all that apply on the NCLEX. But before I get to that though, two house cleaning things that I want to mention. Number one is if you find this video helpful, would really appreciate a thumbs up on this video. It does help us in terms of more exposure on YouTube. And the second thing is that if you are currently prepping for looking at taking the NCLEX and you haven't picked up an NCLEX Prep course, or the NCLEX Prep course you picked up is not quite working out for you, make sure you go check out nursemoneytalk.com/NCLEX Prep, and that will take you to the NCLEX Prep course that I actually recommend and I think that you will find helpful. Now, let's go ahead and get right down to it with what exactly does it mean if you get a lot of, select all that apply questions on the NCLEX. So quick backstory. The reason why I'm actually bringing this up or making this video is that I think a lot of students think that, if they get a lot of select all that apply, that it might mean something. So if they get a lot of select all that apply, then that probably means that that they're doing well on the NCLEX. Now, if you're sitting there and if you don't quite get how the NCLEX works, so it might not make sense to you why some students might kind of use that train of thought. So generally speaking, the way the NCLEX the way the NCLEX exam works is that as you answer questions and as you answer more questions correctly, you'll get gradually harder and harder questions until the computer can then determine that if it keeps asking you questions or whatnot, that you'll remain above the confidence level or whatever. So I don't want to go too much into that. I've made other videos on this that you can definitely check out. But the key thing though that I want you to kind of hone in on is that as you get more questions correctly, that it will gradually keep giving you harder and harder questions. Now, most students would probably say that select all that apply questions are harder. So and which kind of makes sense because instead of one answer, now you have to find multiple answers, and so then they then reason that, well, if I keep getting these harder test format, then that must mean that I'm doing well. Hence, I probably passed the NCLEX, or I'm going to pass the NCLEX. That's kind of like in a nutshell how that train of pattern kind of works. And so my thought on what exactly it means if you keep getting a lot of select all that apply is that it probably doesn't mean a whole lot. Or in other words, I don't think you can safely assume that just because you're getting a lot of select all that apply questions, that means that you're doing well on the NCLEX. Because you see, the thing about test questions is that what somebody perceives as being difficult is going to vary from person to person. So, for instance, I could give you a select all that apply, and you might look at it and be like, oh, okay, this is a fairly easy question. I could also give you a regular question, like a question that only has one right answer, and you could think that that's like the hardest question in the world. And you could give that to another student and they could think that the reverse is true. And that would probably just depend on your perception of the question. That would depend on your overall kind of experience with that actual topic. But the key thing though that I think that gets ignored out of all of this is that also depends on how the test writer, so whoever wrote the test question, um, how they actually wrote the question. Because one of the things that I've learned in as I was going through undergraduate, it was actually one of my undergraduate professors who made this really crystal clear to me, is that a test, regardless of the format, somebody who writes a test question can make the question really hard if they so choose. Or like something else to keep in mind is that there are probably certain topics that inevitably students are going to struggle more in, or going to have a harder time kind of conceptualizing. And so because of that, it becomes really hard just to really look at, okay, and say, a bunch of select all that applies are going to mean one thing versus the other, even though, like I said, I do recognize that that a lot of students are going to, probably would say that they find like that particular test format harder than others. But but all of that aside, though, I think part of the issue that I have with just kind of like just kind of like this train of thought, if you will, is that I think it can put you like it can like get you to focus on other things. It can get you focusing on things that don't really matter, when, like, for me personally, I think when you get to the NCLEX, like, I think your focus should be on one question at a time. You can't go back. So it's like, what is this question that I have in front of me? Let me tackle this question, hit submit, go to the next one. That question doesn't matter. It no longer exists, and keeps moving on. Because I think similar to how I kind of took issue with with just kind of like this hyper focus on passing with the minimum number of questions. In that scenario, it was like, once you went past that minimum number of questions, then it's like, in the back of your mind, you're probably constantly thinking to yourself, well, I'm just not doing as well as I thought, or blah, blah, blah. And then that can then lead you to not focus on what's important, which is one question at a time. So yeah, so that is all I actually have for this particular video. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment sections below. Don't forget, if you haven't actually found a good NCLEX Prep course yet, make sure to go to NurseMoneyTalk.com/NCLEX Prep. And then that'll take you to the one that I currently recommend at the moment. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will catch you very soon in that next one.